In this video, I'm going to solve every question from the Mathematical Association's first Maths Challenge from 2023. This is a UK-based challenge that is also open to students around the world that gives pupils aged 7 to 9 the chance to take part in a fun mathematical challenge. These problems are also included in the totally free course Get Ready for the First Maths Challenge. In that course, you can practice all of these questions, as well as questions from other papers, and each question has a video hint as well as the full video solution, so you can watch the hints get started and really have the best chance of getting the answers by yourself. Here on YouTube there are no hints, just the solutions, but I'll put timestamps below so you can jump to the questions you need, or you can start at question 1 and pause the video at the start of each one to have a go. Which calculation gives the greatest total? When we've got a series of additions and subtractions, we just go from left to right. So in the first one, 1 plus 2 minus 3, that's 1 plus 2 is 3, 3 minus 3 is 0. In B, we've got 3 minus 1 is 2, and then 2 plus 2 is 4. In C, 1 plus 3 is 4, and then subtract 2 to get 2. 3 minus 2 is 1, plus 1 is 2, and then 3 minus 2 is 1, subtract 1 is 0. And so the greatest total, the largest value is B, which is 4, and so that's the answer. How many 2 centimetre cubes are needed to build a tower 16 centimetres high? We can ignore the fact the cubes are 3-dimensional here. All we're going to do is stack them on top of one another, and it's going to be 2 for each cube, which will now be a square as I'm looking at it like this, and it's just how many until we get to a total of 16. So this is really just a fancy way of asking what's 16 divided by 2, and 16 divided by 2 of course is 8. 8 times 2 is 16, and so 8 cubes will make a 16 centimetre tower, and so the answer here is C. Bertha Day invited 12 friends to her birthday party. Party hats are sold in packs of 5. If she gives each friend one hat, how many packs does she need to buy? Well, if she just bought 1 pack, that would be 5 hats in total. If she bought 2 packs, that would be 10 hats, so that wouldn't be quite enough for all 12 friends. If she bought 3 packs, that would be 15 hats, either 3 times 5 or just keep adding 5 on, and that would be enough. So it doesn't matter that we've got a few hats left over. We need to buy at least 3 packs, exactly 3 packs, to make sure everyone has a hat, and so the answer here is B. Zap writes down every whole number between 1 and 40. How many times will he write the digit 3? You could do this without writing all of the numbers down, but I'm going to write them all down just to be really clear here. So the first 3 is in the number 3, and the next one doesn't happen until the number 13, and then the next one is at 23. Now, in the 30s, it gets a bit more complicated because every number has a 3 at the start. 30, 31, 32, 33, 34, 35, 36, 37, 38, 39, and that is it then. So it would be tempting to say there are 10 numbers here, so 10 plus 3 is 13, but watch out because the number 33 has 2 3s in it. So actually we need to add 1 extra 3 there to get a total of 14 3s, and so the answer here is B, 14. A magic shop sells packs of playing cards for £1.20 each. This week there is a special offer: buy 1 pack of cards and get a second pack half price. Abby Cadabra buys 2 packs. How much do they cost altogether? Well, the first pack costs £1.20 or 120p, and the second pack is half price. So we need to do 120 divided by 2. You could do that as a division if you want to, like this. 12 divided by 2 is 6, and then I've got a 0 here, so half of that is 60, or you might just know that 6 is half of 12, and so that means 60 is half of 120. Either way, we've got £1.20 to add to £0.60. If I add those together, I get £1.80, and that's the answer to this question, and so the answer here is D, £1.80. Which of these numbers can be divided exactly by 5, 3, and 2? Multiples of 2 are the easiest to deal with, because they're just going to be even numbers, and we know that even numbers have to have an even digit at the end of the number, so 35 is not an even number, so that one can't be divided exactly by 2. Similarly, multiples of 5, like 5, 10, 15, 20 and so on, they can only end in a 5 or a 0. So we can rule out any options that don't end in a 5 or a 0. They won't be multiples of 5. So it's just out of 20 and 60. Which of these is a multiple of 3? Well, 20 times 3 is 60. So 60 is certainly a multiple of 3, and 20 is not a multiple of 3. The closest multiples are 18 and 21, which you'll know from your times tables. So the answer to this question is E, 60. 8 identical squares have been used to make this shape. What fraction of the whole shape is shaded? Well, we can see there are 8 squares, so we know that this square is 1/8 of the whole shape. But But what about the triangle? Well, we could also divide all of the squares into 2, and we can see that that would give us then 16 triangles that are all the same. So this triangle is 1/16 of the whole shape. Now we could add 1/18 and 1/16 together. If you've done some fractions, you might be able to do that. Or we could just simply notice that actually there are 2 triangles that make up this square that's 1/18. So we could either think of them as 1/18 or we could think of them as 2/16. So actually the shaded parts overall are 3 out of the 16 triangles. So the answer here is that this must be 3/16. And that's exactly how we would add the fractions together as well. We would say 1/8 is 2/16 and 1/16 is 1/16, and that would give us 3/16. So the answer here is A, 3/16. What number replaces the question mark to make the calculation correct? Well, if we start with 2 and then we multiply that by 0, that would give us a 0 at this point. 2 times 0 is 0. Now we need to think, what would we have after the plus question mark? Well, we end up with a 1, and we've just subtracted 2 from the number to get 1. So I need to undo that, and undoing subtracting 2 would be adding 2. So before I do this minus 2, we should have 1 plus 2, which is 3. So the question becomes, what do I need to add on to 0 to get a 3? And of course 0 plus 3 is 3, so this question mark should be a 3, and so the answer is D. A bowl of fruit contains only apples, oranges, pears and bananas. Half of the fruit are apples. There are 2 oranges, 1 pear and 6 bananas. How many pieces of fruit are there in the bowl altogether? And the key to answering this question is to realise we know how many fruit there are that are not apples. There are 2 oranges, 1 pear and 6 bananas. So that means there are 9 pieces of fruit that are not apples. But half of the fruit are apples. So it must be that there are also 9 apples. That would make them exactly half of the total number of fruit. 9 plus 9 is 18, and so the answer to the question here is E, 18. When this multiplication grid has been completed, how many answers will be an even number? I'm going to fill in the whole multiplication grid here, but it's partly to show you why you don't really need to. So there's a faster way of doing it. But let's just fill in the grid to make it really clear we know what's going on. So the top row has 1 times 1, 2, 3, 4 and 5. That's just the 1 times tables, 1 to 5. The next one would be 2, 4, 6, 8 and 10. Then we'd have 3, 6, 9, 12 and 15. And then we would have 4, 8, 12, 16 and 20. And then we would have 5, 10, 15, 20 and 25. And what you can see is all of the even numbers are in this column here, in this column here, in this row here, and in this row here. So looking at that now, well, maybe it was clear from the start that that's where the even numbers were going to be, because to be an even number, it has to be an even number times an even number or an even number times an odd number, right? The only way we get an odd number is if we do an odd number times an odd number. So we could at the start have just said, well, we know it's going to be the multiples of 2 and the multiples of 4 that are going to be even numbers, and we could have just looked at those rows and columns. Either way, we can add these up now, and we get that there are 5, 10, and then we've got to be careful not to count the other ones twice. There's only 3 extra then in this column and 3 extra in this column, so that gives us 16 in total, and so the answer is C. This is quite a common thing in maths challenges, that there are sometimes slightly longer ways of doing the question. If you don't know how to do it any other way, it's fine, just fill in the table and work out the answer. Sometimes if you want to get all of the answers right in the maths challenge, you need to find the slightly faster ways, and the reason for that is to make sure you've got time to do the later questions, not because it's a bad way of doing the particular question. So that's something that's quite specific to maths challenges, when sometimes there is a little bit of time pressure to get through all the questions. A 4-digit code has to be entered into this keypad to open the door to a safe. There are 4 rules. The code must be an even number, there must be at least 1 digit from each row, there must be at least 1 digit from each column, and when you add the digits together, it makes an even number. Which code is correct? So let's go through the clues one at a time and eliminate the options that don't work. So firstly, the code must be an even number. Well, all of the codes are even apart from C, which ends in a 9, and so that's an odd number, so it can't be C. There must be at least 1 digit from each row. So let's take the top row. That means there's got to be either a 1, a 2 or a 3. So the first one has a 1 and a 3, the second one has a 1, D has a 2 and a 3, and E has a 2, so that's fine. What about 4, 5 and 6? Well, yes, A has a 6, B has a 4 and a 5, D doesn't have a 4, 5 or a 6, so that can't be the answer, and E has a 6. Also out of 7, 8 and 9, A has an 8, B has an 8 and E has an 8, so that's fine. So we've done the first 2 clues. There must be at least 1 digit from each column, so we need to have a 1, a 4 or a 7 in each number. Well, there's a 1 here, a 1 here and a 7 here, that's fine. 2, 5, 8, there's an 8 in this one, there's an 8 in this one, there's an 8 in this one, that's fine. It's got to be a 3, 6 or a 9 in every number. This has a 3 and a 6. B doesn't have a 3, a 6 or a 9, so nothing in that column in B, so we can rule B out, and E does have a 6. So that's fine. So the final test, when you add the digits together, it makes an even number. So in A, we've got 1 plus 3 plus 6 plus 8, that's 18. That is an even number. But in E, we've got 2 plus 6 plus 7 plus 8. That gives us 23. So that's an odd number, so it can't be E. And so the answer to this question is A, 1368. 12 cards are numbered 1 to 12. Amir sorts these cards into pairs. Each pair adds to the same total. Which number must be paired with 3? There's lots of ways to do this, some easier, some harder. One way would be to think, well, what's the total of all of the numbers? If I add together 1 plus 2 plus 3 all the way up to 12, you can find out by just adding them up that you get 78. So there are going to be 6 pairs, all of which have the same total. So if I do 78 divided by 6, that gives me 13. That must be the total of each pair of cards. So it must be that the 3 is paired with the 10. And so the answer to the question is C, 10. Perhaps there's an easier way though. In maths, we often find symmetry, and these symmetrical arguments can really help and give us very nice solutions. And you might just notice when you do this that the only way you're going to be able to pair them up to make them all have the same total is to start by pairing the outside numbers here, 1 and 12, and then to pair 2 and 11, and then to pair 3 and 10, and then to pair 4 and 9, and then 5 and 8, and then 6 and 7, and they will all have the same total of 13. So you might be able to do this without doing any hard maths at all if you notice that symmetry can be your friend here. Ellie must be ready for her football match, which kicks off at 8:45 a.m. It takes Ellie 15 minutes to get up and change into her football kit, breakfast takes 20 minutes, the football pitch is a 5-minute walk from her home, and the team has to warm up for 7 minutes before the kickoff. To be on time for kickoff, which of these times must Ellie wake up? So, you could do this in 2 ways. You could work back one step at a time and say, what time will they be warming up? What time will she be walking to the football pitch? And so on. But it would be faster, I think, just to add all of the different times together. So, the amount of time between waking up and getting to the football match is 15 minutes plus 20 minutes plus 5 minutes plus 7 minutes. And if we add all of those together, we get 47 minutes. So she needs 47 minutes before 8:45 to be waking up. So I need to do 8:45 basically minus 47 minutes. Well, if I take off 45 minutes, we would get to 8 o'clock. So I need to subtract 2 more minutes off of 8 o'clock, and that will take me back to 7:58 a.m. And so the answer here is E, 7:58. And of course, you'd get exactly the same answer if you said, well, 7 minutes before kickoff would be 8:38, and then take 5 minutes off of that, and then take 20 minutes off of that, and then take 15 minutes off of that. But we're trying to do things in the most efficient way we can, so we make sure we get through as many questions as we can in the time allowed. The value of each shape is a positive single digit. What is the value of the triangle? This is quite a tricky question, but the key is to realise that we've only got single digit numbers, and that really narrows down the options. But we need the triangle minus the pentagon to be 4, the triangle divided by the parallelogram to be 2, the parallelogram times the hexagon to be 15, and the pentagon plus the hexagon to be 7. The one that narrows it down is actually the row here, 2 numbers multiplying together to give 15, because the factors of 15 are either 1 times 15 or 3 times 5. But we can't have 1 times 15 because 15 isn't a single digit. So this must be 3 times 5 in some order. Now, if the parallelogram here was 5, then something divided by 5 is 2, would have to be 10, but again, that's not a single digit. So it must be that this is the 3, and this one is the 5, and from there it's easier to fill everything in. In fact, we get the triangle straight away here now. 2 times 3 is 6, 6 divided by 3 is 2, and so the answer to the question is B, 6. But we might want to just check that it really does work. 6 minus 2 is 4, and 2 plus 5 is 7, and so all of the values are correct there, and we can be really sure the answer is definitely B6. Rebecca Violet loves drinking grape juice. When her glass is full, the total mass is 450 grams. After drinking half of it, the total mass is 360 grams. What is the mass of just her glass? Let's think about the 450 grams to begin with. That would be the glass plus the grape juice. I'm just going to write grape here. Rather than thinking of it as the grape juice though, what I'm going to do is think of it as a half of the grape juice and another half of the grape juice. When I put all of those together, I'm going to get 450 grams. After drinking half of it, there'll still be the glass and there'll only be one half of the grape juice left, and that's 360 grams. So the difference between the 450 and the 360 grams is just one half of the grape juice. 450 minus 360 you can work out by doing a column subtraction, or you could say you add 40 to 360 to get 400 and add another 50 to get to 450, so that would be 90 grams. So actually one half of the grape juice is exactly 90 grams. So I could replace the one half of the grape juice here with 90, and then the glass plus 90 is 360 then. So when the glass is empty, it's another 360, so it's another 90 less than the 360. So I need to do 360 minus 90. If I take off 60, I get to 300, take off another 30, I get to 270. So it must be that the glass is 270 grams, and the answer here is E, 270. Which calculation has an odd number as an answer? You could do these by actually working out each of the answers here, but if you know some number facts, you might be able to save yourself a bit of time. Of course, if you don't know the number facts, you'll just have to work them out, and that's fine as well. We're always just trying to save as much time as possible with these, so the more you know, the better. In A, I notice I've got an odd number plus an odd number, and when you add two odd numbers together, you always get an even number. You could also work this out a little bit more simply, because you could do 177 plus 100 would be 277, and we know we want one less than that, so it would be 276. Either way, we find that this is not an odd number. 300 plus 106, that's so easy to do the calculation to get 406. I would just think that immediately, I think, and rule it out, but it's also an even number plus an even number, which gives us an even number. 6 divided by 3, again, you probably know is just 2, so you know that's going to be an even number, so probably don't worry about any number facts for that one. For D, I've got 103 times 9. Well, that's an odd number times an odd number, and an odd number times an odd number does always give an odd number, and so that's the right answer here. You could also work it out fairly quickly if you know that 103 times 9 is 100 times 9 plus 3 times 9, so that would be 900 plus 27, which is 927, which of course is an odd number. And then the final one, 1033 minus 85, again you could work out that that's 948. It's a bit of an awkward subtraction though, so you might want to say, well, it's an odd number minus an odd number, that's an even number, and so we know that's not the answer, but at that point we already know that D is the answer, so perhaps we don't really even need to think about that one. A shop sells toy monsters in 3 colours, blue, pink and yellow. The blue and the pink monster together cost £5, the pink and the yellow monster together cost £8, the yellow and the blue monster together cost £9. How much does it cost to buy one monster of each colour? This is a very famous type of maths challenge question. This sort of thing comes up in all the different maths challenges, but it's quite a tricky one if you haven't seen something like it before, because there's a trick to answering this question really, which is that we want to add everything together. So imagine we spent the £5, the £8 and the £9, right? 5 plus 8 plus 9, that's 13 plus 9, or £22, right? What would I get? Well, I'd get a blue and a pink and a yellow and a blue. So actually, that would be 2 blue, that would be 2 pink, and it would be 2 yellow. Okay? So 2 of each cost £22, so that means that 1 of each would cost exactly half of that, and it would be £11. Very often when you've got some symmetry in the question like this, we've got all the different possible combinations here, blue and pink, pink and yellow, yellow and blue, this sort of thing works where we just combine everything together and we can work out how much it is for 1 of each. Anyway, the answer here is £11, so well done if you got that right. The length of this rectangle is double its width. The perimeter of the rectangle is 48 centimetres. What is the length of the rectangle? Because this is a multiple choice question, one option would be to simply try out all of the lengths here and then to see if they work. In the first one, if the length was 6, then the width would be 3, and then the perimeter would be 6 plus 3 plus 6 plus 3. That's the total of all of the lengths around the shape, and that would give me 18 here, so that wouldn't be right. Now, if I want to do this without just doing trial and error, I'm going to have to say something like this. Let's say we know the width is x and the length is double that width, so we could say that one is 2x. Little bit of algebra here, but you could just say it's 2 widths if you want to. Then this length on the bottom is also 2 widths, or 2x, and this side here is also x. So in total, I've got 2x, 2x, 1x, and 1x. So in total, they all add together to give 6x, or 6 widths. Right? So what we know is that 6 times the width has to be the perimeter, which is 48. And you know from your times tables that 6 times 8 is 48. So that means that the width here is 8 centimeters. So if the width is 8 centimeters, then the length is double that. And then we've got 8 times 2 is 16. They're being a little bit mean, perhaps giving 8 and 16 as answers to this question. But we need 16 centimeters as the final answer, which is D. 5 friends, A, B, C, D, and E, have a race. A finishes in front of C, D finishes 2 places in front of A, B finishes just behind C. In which place did A finish? Well, firstly, I'm going to just call them A, B, C, D, and E without writing out their full names here to make it easier. And we're just going to play around with this. So A finishes in front of C. Let's say this is in front on the right, and then C is going to be somewhere back here. It says D finishes 2 places in front of A, so D must be here, and there's exactly 1 space between A and D. And then B finishes just behind C, and so we must have to have B here. And then in which place did A finish? Well, the only person we haven't considered is E, but we know there's a space for someone here between A and D, so it must be that E is there, and then that is the full order of the friends. So A is right in the middle here, so that's 3rd place, and so the answer here is C. Leo is 12 years old and his cousin Polly is 3 times his age. How old will Polly be when Leo is twice as old as he is now? Well, if Leo is 12 now, then Polly is 3 times his age, so 3 times 12 is 36. So Polly is currently 36. Now when Leo is twice as old as he is now, then he'll be 24. Now it's tempting to double 36 and get 72, but that's not how ages work, is it? If Leo is 12 years older than he was before, Polly will also be 12 years older than she was before, and she will now be 36 plus 12, which is 48 years old, and so the answer here is C, 48.